Palantir reported their second quarter 2023 earnings, sending the stock up slightly after hours. And if you look at the stock year to date, 2023, the stock is up over 180%, causing investors to wonder how much of this is due to some sort of speculative froth versus how much is the underlying fundamentals of the business. I'm going to cover both in this video to try to understand where can Palantir stock go in the years ahead. If this is your first time tuning in, my name is Daniel. You're watching Unrivaled Investing. If I'm a little bit off in this video, I apologize. I'm getting over COVID. That said, I'm still hoping to dive into their latest earnings to help you understand what's going on with Palantir stock. So let's go on to understand what's going on here. So I ask AI Ticker Chat. First month it's free, which leverages artificial intelligence to help investors get up to speed on terms of researching stocks. I go, why might Palantir go up on these results? I'm selecting their latest press release. This is this earnings statement. And it calls out a couple of different things. One is their third consecutive quarter of GAAP profitability. This is a big component that Alex Karp has been talking about for some time, how they are a profitable business, how they're keeping their costs under control, they're growing their revenues, and they're rapidly growing their customer base, growing their customer count by 38% year over year. That is a very favorable data point to show. But when I look at the actual fundamentals, diving in a little bit deeper, I got to say, it's sort of this theme that I'm looking at, which is for several quarters now, the fundamentals have actually not been amazing. I would say they're closer to weak or even soft, but the story that Alex Karp has and the potential is great. So I'd say weak fundamentals, great potential. And that's really what it comes down to when I'm looking at with, Palantir, because when you're looking at the results, you could see 13% revenue growth, not amazing, in my opinion, for a company trading at something like 18 times forward revenue. And you split up, what's actually driving their revenue. Government's the biggest component, growing 15%. Commercial, which is what I'd expect to be really accelerating, isn't. It's only growing 10% versus the government business, which is growing 15%. So, maybe this picks up, maybe this starts accelerating in the quarters ahead. Management, once again, reiterating how they're increasingly profitable. In this case, they've achieved GAAP operating income now for 2 consecutive quarters, where they say, we will become eligible, and this is from Alex Karp's letter, for inclusion in the S&P 500 after we report our financial results for the third quarter. So after they have another quarter of GAAP profitability, they think they'll can be listed with the S&P 500. So then you could get some sort of forced buying. So I think this point alone might be part of the reason why Palantir stock is up on what I'd argue is otherwise soft results, is because of this idea that you could have forced buyers as it gets rebalanced into the S&P 500, let's say in the quarters ahead. But when you look at their profitability, look, 4 million in operating profit last quarter, 10 million this quarter. You're not talking about dramatic margins. For a company with a $40 billion market cap, saying, yes, we did $10 million in operating profits, it's like, woohoo, I learned how to ride a tricycle. At a certain age, it's just not impressive anymore. And I think it's, with Palantir, with $40 billion, you start expecting, to actually start delivering real profitability and not just super slim margins. Now, I'm sure they're heading in that direction, favorably step by step, but it is an important data point. I think the aspect of the great part of what's going on with Palantir is the story. And, Alex Karp spins a very good story talking about the scale of opportunity in front of us has never been more significant. And he's talking about the artificial intelligence platform, which they recently launched just 3 months ago, which leverages large language models to operate within the confines of the enterprise and on privately held data. So the way to think about this is because most data is private data that's held at individual companies, they don't necessarily want to share that information with, let's say, OpenAI's ChatGPT. That said, they do want to have OpenAI ChatGPT help them sort through their data and ask questions about their business. You want to have a bunch of really smart AIs helping run businesses, but you don't necessarily want a third party like Microsoft or OpenAI going through that data. So how do you sort of work through that you can have your own private AI going through your own private data? And that's their solution here with their artificial intelligence platform, which is leveraging, enabling various different large language models. So I do expect this is going to be a huge opportunity for them. They talk about how they're already working with more than 100 organizations and how the demand for this platform is unlike anything we have seen in the past 20 years, and that they have more than 300 additional enterprises to deploy AIP or artificial intelligence platform within their organizations. So I strongly suspect this could help reaccelerate the growth in this business. So even though their growth has decelerated so significantly over the last few years, from 30% growth to now closer to 13% growth, this is such a huge opportunity that maybe you start seeing a reacceleration. And I think that's what you're starting to see here with their outlook, because they're raising their guidance. Another data point that could cause the stock price to go higher is, management saying, hey, we're raising our net revenue guidance for the year to 2.2 billion. So 16% growth. So that does, reinforce this idea you're going from 13% growth to a mid to high teens growth. Maybe it can be higher in the years ahead, with this huge runway with their AIP, artificial intelligence platform. The question is, where does Palantir stock go from here? First, in full disclosure, this is not financial advice. And also a quick plug, I recently bought more of a stock that I think is over 300% upside potential that I called out to my subscribers at unrivaledinvesting.com. So if you're looking to take charge of your investment journey with compelling ideas, market insights, and an exclusive Discord community available for annual subscribers, come check it out. That's unrivaledinvesting.com. I also have educational materials available as well. And so when you look at Palantir, there's never a shortage of exciting data points and developments going on. I mean, just earlier this quarter, Alex Karp penned an op-ed for the New York Times about our Oppenheimer moment, the creation of AI weapons, talking about how this is an arms race of a different kind and it has begun. And in that, he actually draws a direct comparison between the various different large language models to nuclear devices, showing what, in my opinion, is sort of a ridiculous chart. Keep in mind, this is from his op-ed showing the explosive yield in kilotons of various different nuclear devices and how it, started, you see in 1945 versus 1962, and you just reach this tremendous, exponential curve here in terms of the size of these explosions. And then you're saying, well, he's drawing a comparison to machine learning systems and how, we have this exponential growth in the number of parameters for these models, and we just don't know how powerful, potentially even dangerous, these models can be in the future. And you're going to want to have someone like Palantir working with the US government to make sure that you're leveraging these models to work for Western governments. And he makes a good point of calling out, yes, some of these, largest published models today are actually Chinese models. So, very clear on where he thinks, the geopolitical risk is with China versus the US, but he does back it up with some really valuable data points in terms of, this is a huge opportunity. And by the way, we're winning real contracts. For example, in May, they announced a multi-year contract with the United States Special Operations Command for over $400 million to support their AI initiatives. So clearly, this is another growth driver for Palantir, and it's not only going to come from businesses looking to leverage their AI platform, but also the U.S. government and also, defense forces to say, hey, we want to make sure we have top-notch AI deployed and ready for whatever comes next. Now, thinking about Palantir stock, this is my hypothetical valuation framework. Of course, the stock price can go way higher, way lower, but I look at this and honestly, with a over $40 billion market cap, it's really hard for me to get excited about Palantir at this point. I think if you're a bull with Palantir at these prices, I think you need to believe that they're going to be able to reaccelerate their growth well beyond where they currently are, maybe get to growth, in 20% plus, maybe even closer to 30%, because penciling out 22% growth and 25% profit margins, keep in mind, they're closer to break even right now. Assuming they get to 25% profit margins, assuming a nearly 30 times earnings multiple, and you're still underwater 5 years from now, using this valuation framework. So I think if you're a bull, you need to believe much greater, fundamental growth than what's actually being delivered at this point. Maybe they deliver it, but it's just too hard for me at this point. And that's why I get to this, this perspective on Palantir, which is that the fundamental story with Palantir, when I look at their sales and I look at their profits, I'd say it's weak, it's soft, the valuation is not compelling. But when I look at the story, I think it's very intriguing, very exciting. The idea of, hundreds of institutions looking to leverage large language models on their private data, and thinking about U.S. defense forces needing to leverage, AI to help make sure that they have, ready deployed and quickly can counter any sort of, initiative around the world. So I look at this and I'm thinking it's such an exciting story, but how much of that story is resulting in sort of hype and froth that really could cause investors to be in a world of pain, or even just have an unpleasant ride for, let's say, the next 5 years. And so it's hard for me to see why this would continue to do really well, other than if you just get tremendous hype where, something goes from expensive to crazy expensive to just bananas. And so I just wonder, if you'll see that with Palantir. Personally, I want to find easier things where, it's the Warren Buffett quote where he's he compares it to, like, jumping in the Olympics, where you don't want to have to find 7-foot hurdles to jump over, and that he wants to find 1-foot hurdles. And I'm looking at, Palantir, where investors are assuming, nearly 20 times forward sales. That's like a 10, 20-foot hurdle that you have to jump over. And that's just extremely difficult. I think as an investor, while I like that sexy story, I'd rather find something where it's a lower hurdle to still get an attractive return. If you disagree, I'd absolutely love to hear it in the comments below. And thanks so much for tuning into Unrivaled Investing. Please make a point of hitting that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much.